Picture this situation, because I know for a fact you have been here, and it is going to sting a little bit to remember it, but stay with me. You are sitting on your couch, or maybe you're lying in bed, and it is late, way later than you should be awake, and you are staring at your phone screen, waiting for a text back from that one specific person who you know is bad news, but you just cannot help yourself. And you see those three little dots appear, and your heart literally jumps into your throat. You get this rush of adrenaline, and then the dots disappear, and silence follows. And suddenly you feel this crash, this heavy pit in your stomach that feels like absolute dread. And you start spiral thinking, wondering if you said something wrong, if they are with someone else, or if you're just being too needy. And in that moment, you swear to yourself that you are done, that you are deleting their number, that you deserve better. But then 10 minutes later, the phone buzzes with a dry two-word reply, and you are instantly back in the game, feeling relieved and hopeful and completely hooked again. This cycle right here, this exhausting emotional roller coaster, is what we need to talk about today. Because if you look back at your dating history, you might notice a pattern where the faces change, but the dynamic stays exactly the same. And you have to ask yourself the terrifying question of why you keep falling for people who cannot give you the love you actually want. And the answer is not just bad luck, and it is not just that modern dating is terrible, though it is. The answer is actually wired deep into your psychology and your brain chemistry in ways that will honestly shock you once you understand them. Before we dive in, I want to remind you that everything we talk about here is for educational purposes and general awareness to help you understand yourself better. So take what resonates and leave the rest, but do not use this to diagnose yourself or anyone else. Now, here's the first thing you need to understand, and it is a concept that feels completely counterintuitive. Your brain does not prioritize your happiness. It prioritizes your survival. And to your subconscious mind, survival equals familiarity, which means your brain is actually attracted to what it knows, even if what it knows is painful or dysfunctional. Which is why if you grew up in a home where love was conditional, or where you had to perform to get attention, or where a parent was emotionally unavailable or critical, your brain created a love map that equates love with anxiety, longing, and the need to prove your worth. This is why when you meet someone who is stable, kind, consistent, and available, you might feel bored or say there's no spark because your nervous system is not getting that hit of anxiety that it has learned to interpret as chemistry, which brings us to the curiosity gap of why we call it a spark when it is actually a stress response. Think about it. That butterfly feeling in your stomach is biologically the same mechanism as the fight or flight response. So when you meet someone who triggers your old wounds, maybe they're distant like your father or critical like your mother, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree and says, "Oh, I know this. This is home. I know how to operate here." And you mistake that familiarity for a soulmate connection. But really, it's just your history repeating itself, begging for a different outcome. This leads us to the concept of repetition compulsion, a psychological term that basically means we keep putting ourselves in the same traumatic situations over and over again, hoping that this time we can fix it. Because if you can finally get that emotionally unavailable person to open up and choose you, then your inner child feels like, okay, finally, I am worthy. Finally, I've fixed the original pain. But the tragic irony is that you're trying to get water from a dry well, and you end up re-traumatizing yourself every single time. But wait, it gets stickier because there's a chemical component to this addiction that is stronger than willpower, and it's called intermittent reinforcement, which is exactly how slot machines work in a casino to keep you gambling until you've lost everything. If you pull the lever on a slot machine and you win every single time, you would get bored within 5 minutes. And if you pull the lever and you never win, you would walk away after a few tries. But if you pull the lever and you win randomly, sometimes big, sometimes small, sometimes nothing for 10 turns, your brain releases a massive amount of dopamine in anticipation of the reward, and you become obsessed with the cycle. This is exactly what happens when you date someone inconsistent, someone who is hot and cold, who ignores you for 2 days and then love bombs you with attention for one night, because your brain gets hooked on the maybe. And in those moments of silence or distance, your anxiety spikes. So when they finally come back, the relief feels like euphoria. It feels like the greatest high in the world, and you mistake that relief for love. But let me be clear. Relief is not love. Relief is just the cessation of pain that they caused in the first place. You have to pause and realize that you are not addicted to the person, you're addicted to the cycle of highs and lows. And this is why it's so hard to leave, because you are literally breaking a biochemical dependency, not just a relationship. Now, I want to talk about the fixer mentality, because I know so many of you are high-achieving, empathetic people who believe that if you just love someone hard enough, you can heal them or change them. And this is the ultimate trap of the good person falling for the wrong person. You see their potential, you see the wounded child inside them, and you think, I can save them, I can be the one who understands them. But here's the harsh truth that you need to hear. You're falling in love with a potential that doesn't exist in reality. And by trying to save them, you're actually avoiding your own life and your own needs, using their chaos as a distraction from your own emptiness or your own fear of true intimacy. True intimacy is terrifying because it requires you to be seen fully and vulnerably by someone who is actually looking at you, not someone who is looking away. And often we choose people who are looking away because deep down we're afraid that if someone really saw us, they wouldn't like us. So we pick people who can't see us to confirm that bias. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps you safe from the risk of real love while keeping you trapped in the drama of fake love. Let's pivot to the ick factor, that moment when a nice, normal person shows interest in you and you suddenly feel repulsed or suffocated, and you think they're too nice or they're desperate. But really, what is happening is that your defense mechanisms are activating because this person is threatening your comfort zone of isolation or struggle. Healthy love often feels boring at first to a nervous system that is used to chaos. It feels like calm water, not a tidal wave. And if you don't know how to swim in calm water, you will panic and look for a storm just to feel normal again. So how do we actually break this pattern? Because understanding it is only half the battle. The other half is the excruciating work of changing your behavior when every fiber of your being wants to text them back. The first step is ruthless self-awareness, recognizing that the spark you're chasing is actually a red flag, and teaching yourself to pause when you feel that intense, immediate chemistry and ask yourself, am I attracted to this person or am I attracted to the anxiety they are provoking in me? You have to start dating with your head and your heart, not just your trauma responses, which means looking for consistency, reliability, and actions that match words, and realizing that boring is actually just peace, and peace is the soil where real love grows. You also need to address the scarcity mindset that tells you that this person is your last chance at love, that if you let them go, you will be alone forever. Which is a lie your fear tells you to keep you settling for crumbs. There are billions of people on this planet, and the idea that your soulmate is someone who makes you cry yourself to sleep is frankly insulting to the universe. You have to be willing to sit in the void, to be alone for a while rather than in bad company, because in that space of being alone, you learn to self-soothe. You learn to validate your own worth without needing a partner to act as a mirror. And once you know your own value, you stop giving discounts to people who cannot afford you. It's about raising your standards and being willing to walk away the moment those standards are violated, not as a manipulation tactic to get them to chase you, but as an act of self-preservation. Let's talk about the red flags you ignore, specifically the intuition that screams at you in the first 5 minutes of a date, that little voice that says something is off here, which you immediately silence because they're attractive or charming or because you're lonely. That intuition is your data collection system. It has picked up on micro expressions, tone of voice, and inconsistencies that your conscious mind missed. And you have to stop gaslighting yourself into thinking you're just being judgmental when you're actually being observant. You're not asking for too much, you're just asking the wrong people. And that's a crucial distinction. When you stop trying to buy bread at the hardware store, you stop getting frustrated that they don't have bread.
The wrong people are simply the wrong address for the love you're trying to deliver. I want to touch on the concept of limerence, which is that obsessive, intrusive state of mind where you fantasize about a future with someone you barely know, creating an entire relationship in your head before you've even had a second date. Limerence is a defense against reality, a way to escape your own life, and it usually latches onto people who are unavailable because the fantasy is safer than the reality. If they're unavailable, you never have to test the fantasy against the messiness of real life. So the perfect relationship remains perfect in your head while you remain miserable in reality. Breaking this means catching yourself every time you drift into the fantasy and bringing yourself back to the cold, hard facts of how they are actually treating you right now, today. Are they calling? Are they showing up? Are they curious about your inner world? If the answer is no, no amount of fantasy will change that. You have to fall in love with reality even when it's disappointing, because reality is the only place where real change can happen. And here's a controversial take. Sometimes we choose the wrong people because